Welcome back to the Valicites podcast, the show for accountants, FP&A leaders, controllers, and CFOs who want to understand how leadership, finance, and AI are transforming the future of business. I'm your host, Albert Ramos. Today's guest is one of the most seasoned and strategic minds in finance, someone who doesn't just analyze numbers, but connects them directly to action, growth, and investor confidence. You've probably heard of him or seen him on LinkedIn. David Strong is a C-suite financial executive with over 20 years of experience as a CFO, COO, president, board advisor, and founder. He's built and sold companies, scaled venture-backed firms, and has driven over $1.2 billion in capital raises and M&A activity. Currently serving as a fractional CFO and managing partner at Strong Capital Partners, David brings a rare owner's eye to every engagement, helping 25 to 95 mil companies unlock cash flow, reduce tax burdens, raise capital, and implement AI-driven financial strategies. In today's episode, we dig deep into what it means to be a modern CFO, not just a steward of financials, but a storyteller, a business translator, and a strategic partner to the CEO. We're going to chat about why most CFOs still fail and I love this, they explain the business test, how David plugs directly into operations, sales, and the customer experience, not just finance, the role of AI in transforming FP&A and cash forecasting, how founder-led and PE-backed companies can implement the right financial tech stack, so important and so timely, what the next generation of CFO leadership looks like. And I'm excited, David's thoughts on Valicites, our AI-powered FP&A and strategic finance platform. Let's jump right in. David, welcome to the Valicites podcast.
Thank you, Albert. Glad to be here.
Well, so lucky, so thankful. I know we connected on LinkedIn. I know Jason, our founder, connected with you and the team around DealMax and some other places. And so we're so excited to chat with you. I feel like everyone in Utah knows you. I've had a great opportunity. I know Jason has met with you. We love spending time with you. You're so wealth of knowledge and looking forward to chatting here.
I appreciate you having me.
My pleasure. Well, you often say, David, that most CFOs can't explain their own business, right? Explain the business test. Why is that your litmus test? Walk us through that.
Yeah. So for me, a lot of it has come from just raising a bunch of capital, okay? And going through a bunch of pitch decks and a bunch of sims and so forth. And what I found is that, lately I've had more success in kind of getting rid of the pitch deck sim and storyboarding, meaning that walking through, telling the story, what's the history of the business, how it came, and all the dynamics with it. Not just, hey, here's the numbers, here's the valuation, here's the multiple, because what I found with the storyboarding is that it engages, it pulls them in emotionally. They see that it's a living, breathing, somewhat of an organism, that it's like, it's got all these dynamics. It's not just write about the numbers, because the numbers is what is kicked out after it's interacting operations, sales, finance, human resource, right? And so typically finance and accounting kind of try to compartmentalize themselves and say, okay, where's the ones we're collecting all the data, so we'll go around and get it, and then we'll let you know when it's ready. And then there's not a whole lot of interaction. And so the more interaction, the better, because that way, operations, I try to be able to see what I can do to help the COO, whatever their initiatives are. If the way I can do the financials, I can give them metrics or ideas of how they're performing, prior years or whatever they're working on, then they're going to be able to enhance and zero in on items that maybe they weren't originally focused on doing. Same thing with sales and marketing. Sales and marketing is, you ask them, what did you talk to accounting to get what you did last year? So this year, no, why would I do that?
I love that you preach that. I think the modern finance leader is not just a number cruncher. We're all good at that. There's no question about it. We can do that. But we're now being pressed, especially with the AI intelligence, because it can handle all that. we're now being pressed to be a strategic business operator. And what that requires and what you preach is you got to understand the business. You have to be able to collaborate with marketing, sales, ops, et cetera, legal, right? And then even more importantly, and I've seen you preach this on LinkedIn too, and within our conversations, understanding the value proposition or the customer experience journey. If you don't understand those as a modern finance leader, it's not going to go well, or you're not going to have the correct pro forma or budget. And I love that you press on that so much, especially with you need to understand the business. That's your total litmus test. And I love that.
Yeah. I mean, what I found is that when you understand the business and you can explain it in different ways, okay, because if you're able to explain the business in its genuine, authentic self, you're acknowledging certain parts and pieces that are not perfect, that need to be worked on. And so a lot of times the pitch deck, and when you're going through that, it's not relaying what the business is. It's trying to showcase it in the best possible light, which is understandable. But people want to know, how does this thing behave on a normal daily basis, and what things are we going to have to work around or deal with? And so the more you're able to speak to it and be somewhat humorous about it, I mean, talk about, that can be just a crap show at times.
Right.
But to your point, I mean, you're getting to the point where you got AI, and that enablement will be crunching the numbers, and we're doing it almost simultaneously while you're talking, and where you can speak and have it do that. Then what's even more important is interpreting it, but AI will interpret it as well and give you suggestions. But it's that human interaction of what, bringing to life what the company should be doing.
So good.
Otherwise,
Yeah, and you call it the owner's eye, and I love that. Actually, I'm stealing that now. By the way, Dave, I'm going to take that. You got to have the owner's eye as the CFO or the modern finance leader. And what I love about you that you do, and this is where we all need to lean in some more. We have to understand our roles are changing. If you haven't gotten into the customer experience or sales calls or customer calls, you're doing yourself and your organization a disservice. And Dave, you're well known to jump in the trenches. I mean, you're a in the trenches guy, which is why you're talking about storyboard. I mean, you know the ins and outs of the organization, right? And so what's your recommendation on finance leaders, like jumping into the sales process and fully understanding or the customer experience journey when they're approaching finance? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, my thoughts are, well, number one, go and shadow your top salespeople, or in the sales organization, and go out and sell, and then go out and be a customer, in the receiving end, and see how that experience is, because how you take it is, I mean, you're going to have a lot of the same impressions that most everybody else does. Right. Operations, same thing as far as, okay, if you're going to do certain things, go in and work with operations and actually do some of them. The more I see that, I mean, one of the greatest things I'm able to do is do mentoring. I try to do mentoring with controllers, and a lot of people say, I mean, that's a rare phenom, or be able to change their colors into a CFO, right? Because and it is, because the CFO is more outward facing. You are explaining the business, you are rubbing, you're shaking hands, you're out there in the market talking about it, right? And where a lot of times they see accounting and controllers in the back, proofing up the numbers, accuracy, so that they're, everything that can be run, where data integrity is there, numbers are accurate, we're solid. And so when you have the opportunity of a controller that can go into that, right, then you're able to tell them, hey, go out and get on the jobs on sales out there where they are actually implementing what is sold. You have sales, and then you have implementation. And then, because the more you get involved in that, and the more it brings to life the numbers, because then when you look at the numbers, you start to see why there might be variances. If you recall your experience on whatever whatever went on, and why the project maybe got delayed, right? And then why the client might be a little upset, and why their cash isn't coming in on your cash conversion cycle or day sales outstanding. So I mean, the more you get involved with it, and the more you understand it, then you become that key person in the organization, right? I
Right.
mean, the CEO naturally knows it because they started the company. But you can become that, key strategic, not just financial partner, but strategic advisor across the board.
And it's so important. And you call it the plugged in CFO, right? And I think more senior accounting managers, those in accounting, those controllers, FP&A leaders, you're going to be pressed more to think like and advise like a strategic CFO. Here's the reality, right? And there's companies out there at this time of recording, Rillet, which just raised a ton of money. It's an AI powered ERP system. It's going to take over a ton of tasks that currently, AR, AP, collections, all those things that they do, you don't need to do it anymore. I mean, look at Hyperbots, right? And then you look at Valisites on the FP&A space and all the cash flow forecasting, the modeling, which would take us manually, typically hours, weeks, and then to maintain, you no longer need to do it anymore. So what do we do next? Well, we need the storyteller. We need the person that understands the customer experience, operations, marketing, everything that's leading to the P&L or your pro forma budget, right? All of that that's in the boardroom or in front of the PE group that's going to grill you. You have to understand the other aspects of the business. You have to be able to communicate what's going on. You have to have the right EQ, the right communication skills. I love that. The plugged in CFO. It's such good advice that you're bringing because you see it. I mean, you see what's happening here with the intelligence that we have at our fingertips, and it's only getting better and better. And so that's my next question around, you spent a lot around in consulting as well, the financial tech stack. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see finance leaders or organizations make when they're deciding on or evaluating their tech stack?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is because they're not plugged in with all the different key, operational. Well, just key parts of the company: sales,
Right.
marketing, human resource. Right? Because they're not plugged in. At the end of the day, all the data and everything flows back to accounting, finance,
Right.
right? And so, but then by nature, most SMEs, you go in there and sales has a different thing, marketing has a different thing, fulfillment has a different, and HR does. And so then a lot of time finance doesn't really want to be the one disrupting that. They want to say, hey, we're just, hey, whatever works for you, just give it to us because we have our system, right?
Right.
Right there is some inherent inefficiencies because
Mhm.
then you should be able to pull the data, push the data of, hey, your budget, you are projecting this, and it could almost be naturally where it then pushes back naturally. Well, this is like with AI and with the technology of, okay, budget received, and then the, the engineering is analyze, compare prior to the prior year, those types of things, and then it goes back to them. They're getting real time input, whereas I think before it's, okay, here's my budget, and then, okay, we're going to accept the budget, and then, oh, we're going to make some modifications, right? So we're in real time, being mobile, agile, which is how companies should be. And then it's how well can they adapt to the information and change. So the tech stack, in my opinion, is one of the best ways they can create less confusion, more efficiency, and
Right.
encouragement of communication within the company.
I love it. And I love that you share just the features. And I know it's always custom for whatever organization, you're assessing that we're assessing, right? But I love that you bring up efficiency standards, communicate alignment, right? Let's not be siloed because it does create inefficiencies, time waste, right? All of that. So thanks for sharing the features. You had a chance to lift up the hood of Valisites, and I know you're always constantly assessing the tech stack, which tools can be the best for X, right? In our case, it's FP&A and forecasting and modeling, as well as some accounting gap analysis and all that. But what are your initial thoughts so far that you can share with the audience around Valisites?
On Val's side, so geez, honestly, in my opinion, Val Sites has some of the most comprehensive, but also ways in which it simplistically explains what's going on within a company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because you can get a lot of data analysis, and you get that data analysis, and all of a sudden your eyes start rolling back in your head, you start twitching. It doesn't make it, for most people, it doesn't make sense. But the way that I see, you can create as much detail or not as much. You can dial it up and down within the valve sites, each one of those modules.
Right.
The cash, the comply. I'm trying to remember all the different
Yeah, trend sites and deep sites from a
trend site.
P&L. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So each one of those, right, has its significant reason. And it's a good thing because a lot of times if you just have one report, you'll get lost. You'll start with kind of looking at one item, and then all of a sudden, then you'll go off on a different direction. But if you're in there, you're focused. And like the cash, I love the cash. That's my first go-to.
Oh yeah.
Right. And I look at the cash. You have it modeled out as a 13-week. I prefer a 52-week rolling because a lot of people are like, 52-week. What are you doing? I said, you gotta, it's like you gotta understand. When you get in there, most of the time, the cash flow is like the most pressing issue and the most important for the stability of the company. And a lot of it is for me is I'll be talking to the CEO and find out what they understand. When they're looking at the numbers, what do they look at? And so they have a different definition of versus what's the current ratio or the quick ratio or the cash conversion cycle, right? The technical standard terms. And so I cater it towards whatever it's going to resonate with them, right? So then they look at it. My whole thing with that is I want them to use that 52-week every day. I want them to look at it and say, well, what if we did this in the business and then plunk, if it's going to cost this much, he or she can just plunk it right in the cash flow and see how it affects it. Right. And so then they're trying to break the system real time. Whereas other times they're trying to get feedback from all the different departments and it's just chaotic. So it streamlines it. And the way you have it laid out is very simplistic.
It's not only streamlined and really simply what we're doing is, and you've seen this, right? Whether it's 13-week or 52-week, we're extracting the data from your ERP or QuickBooks, what have you, in any format, CSV, right? Yep. PDF or the Excel, Google Sheets that some are using too. And we can forecast it out 52 weeks, 13-week, right? But again, it's customized. We can add different line items. There's still some human in the loop, but the intelligence gets it to you far quicker because it's looking at vendor behavior patterns, when they pay, when they don't pay, the timing, your seasonality, right? Your debt, if you have one, your debt vehicle and the terms there. It's everything there. I'm just so surprised. We've been getting a lot of buzz with it, but I'm still so surprised. And maybe I'm not surprised because from the consulting world, you go in and you lift up the hood. It's like, do you have anything cash flow, cash forecasting related? No. 90%. No. I'm like, oh my goodness, like that is so important. So we're getting a lot of feedback that the Cash IQ, to your point, is really an exciting one. And then for those that are looking for that executive package, not just a P&L and balance sheet, oh, am I doing good with net revenue and EBITDA or what have you? It takes it to the next level and not a dashboard. Because there's a lot of companies out there that are explaining, what they do with AI. It's a dashboard. Where we take it to the next level is, yes, you have the visuals to your point with your specific ratios, but it's insights directionally, yes, good, favorable, unfavorable, but also here's what you need to go do. And a lot of the organizations out there, including CFOs that want to be augmented, or maybe you don't have a finance leader, right? It's more of the accounting bookkeeping, are needing those insights and strategic decisions because there's a lot of CEOs who are like, got it, I see the numbers, I kind of understand them or I understand them, but what the hell do I do now? So what? Now what is what I call it. So I appreciate you, spending time and looking under the hood. AI is here. AI is here, right? When it comes to FP&A and forecasting and even in accounting, where do you see things going? What are you excited about?
Yeah, I'm excited about everything, honestly. Like I was relaying to you, like for me, I was like, okay, I keep hearing about the whole AI and so forth. And so for me, I just had to immerse myself in it and took one of my reports and templates and said, what can I do with this? And to really see whether or not AI can enhance it. Right. And so that goes and so for me, I mean, you can ask my family. I mean, there are times all of a sudden it's like 5:30 in the morning, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get to a meeting. I'm like, I didn't even go to sleep because I was just, so enthralled with AI, right? And
Mm,
so I'll be the first one to say that AI is not everything, okay?
right.
And I don't think it will be everything, but AI creates so much opportunity for, better accuracy, movement, speed to data, speed to market, using all of that, right? But
Right.
then it comes down to those that are going to adapt and learn and understand the programming portion of. You still need to have the human element that knows, okay, this is where we're going to get from point A all the way, and that we know we're going to get there. How can we use AI to shorten that, to make it better, to create new opportunities based upon the data, right? Because I think the data now is going to start telling different stories and different directions that companies can go on vertical, horizontal integrations. That's why I love mergers and acquisitions. And that's a market right there that I'm seeing very minimal
Yeah.
um, AI enablement. But like with what ValSites has, I mean, I think you already have it built in to be able to then actually have like a valuation
Yeah.
component.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then,
I'm so glad you brought that up because it's like our hidden gem, right? So we have a lot of people in M&A and those that do Q of E or any type of due
yep,
diligence when they're assessing, right? Including like internal assessments.
yep,
And so we have peer sites where we're looking at everything or Comply IQ. We're looking at everything under the hood, including how that benchmarks to your competitors, to your competitive, to your industry, and it's so much fun. We went to an event called Deal Max and some other things. We're
yep,
going to FP&A Summit, and there's so many people that are like, I have 100 deals. Do you know how long it takes me to get down to the 10 deals, and then from there to do my Q of E, my due diligence? I mean, hours and hours. I'm like, I get it. I've been there. Let me show you how AI can take it to the next level. And now we're picking gems. And we were talking, earlier off recording about just the results. Like AI is cool, sure, speed, precision, but if it's not getting you the results and you're going backwards still, it's pointless, right? What I'm
yep,
loving about Eval Sites, and I know you're a big fan of results and performance driven cultures. Like we're getting results, we're getting clients to get better. The financials looking better. You can find these hidden gems within your portfolio stack of different organizations that you're thinking about investing in or doing any type of M&A activity on. So yeah, that I'm excited about that too. I think the M&A side is, it's just unraveling the old, right? The legacy
yeah.
stuff of how we always done things. And what people don't realize, I always hear, is it secure? Yes. And there's a way to make it even more secure. Am I going to get an ROI? Absolutely. Now, what are we measuring, right? Let's see where we want to get ROI, and if it can do that,
Yep.
great, right? It's custom built. And then can I
Yep.
trust it? And that's the only one where I say, I still like human in the loop, because right now, no board member or private equity executive is going to say, well, blame the AI and blame the AI, no one else on the team. Not yet.
Who's
That's not
running
happening.
the AI? Who's
Yeah.
running the AI?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the,
The AI
all right.
is.
That's right. But yeah, I mean, so like for me, I mean, to your point, like your ROI, but I was on a call the other day and I was talking to someone and talking about their software. And I said, I just haven't seen a lot of advancements in the M&A side of stuff,
Mhm.
because I said, man, you got this process and you got legal that, I mean, legal in and of itself is streamlining with AI because of you're pulling data and
And
it's there,
contracts. Yep.
right? Contracts. And so I'm looking at it and saying, man, there's potentially a way you could reduce the substantial legal costs. Q of E. I mean, your stuff in Val Science is what 98% already almost there. It's just a few
All,
more
yep. And we do
tweaks.
our nice little touches of a scrub of human in the loop just
Yeah,
because we want to make sure, right? It's not
yeah,
always, AI is not foolproof yet.
no,
And who knows when that will be, but you got to have
yeah.
human.
Well, you can ask AI itself. It'll
Yeah,
give you an answer to it because
exactly.
they really
Oh shoot, yeah, I
AI is
missed out
designed
on.
not to lie. It's like if you're talking to someone and you think it's a bot or something, are you an AI bot? Because it's designed not to lie. So, but I think it's important to note that on your Val sites, it's not just like the data and how quickly it can push and pull and consolidate, combine, separate, and then realign different things. But the way it then and I don't know if you have your own LLM in there or not, but the way it explains on, hey, this is where you're at, this is where you're at in, as far as in the industry, and then potentially benchmarking. And if you want to get to this level, pursue these items. That's the type of stuff people will get from the Val sites.
Yeah.
I remember, I've tried to meet with a lot of people that have, big players that have the software, but to your point, what they continue to focus on is using AI just to make the dashboard even a bigger dashboard,
And why do you think
right?
that is? Like, what do you think? Why do most companies overcomplicate their financial dashboards and reporting? Like, what do you think that is?
I think a lot of times it's I don't think they're really dialed in as well as they should be to what metrics are pertaining to them at that point in time.
Mhm.
Okay, meaning there's company metric like in the report I did, but like yours will take into account. You can go in there and say, okay, if we're pursuing more inorganic growth, and so you're going
Mhm.
to be doing some acquisitions, right? Maybe you're going to take on some debt or equity. Then you got some different items you got to be aware of in your metrics. Your cash, your debt, debt, equity, whatever those metrics are, you got to be more sensitive because when you go to those players, they're going to be looking at it. So when you have the AI enablement, like Valsites has, you can navigate your conversation in real time.
Mhm.
Next thing you know, you're going to have the headset and be able to change how things are going, like in real time. And
Yeah,
so someone's going to be feeding you information while you're doing a pitch. So I don't
it's
know if it'll get
insane
to
where it's
that.
all going. It's insane where it's all going. And you just made me shoot. I should take the opportunity because I know you're excited. We're excited about this. But Val is right around the corner. We'll be releasing it soon, where you have an actual AI agent co-pilot living within your ERP or within your, let's call it QuickBooks. And let's just say I'm with you. I'll be up early in the morning, 4:30, 5:30 in the morning, and I just want to know. I don't want to go search for. Right? I just want to know. So I go to Val. I have the luxury of having accessibility to it. Who owes us money? And within 3 seconds, it just spits it all out. Your AR aging, but it's spitting it out in a different format. I'm like, got it. And then it asks me, do you want me to text, email, call? All three of them. And so I've been on the other line just to test it. I mean, it's this lovely voice. She's amazing, right? In this case, and we're changing voices, but it's Val, and she's letting me know, hey, invoices past due. Would you like to make a payment? Here's the link, etc. And I'm like, this is. I mean, just think about where it's all going. That used to be a human doing that, right? Or a human pushing the button, or it's automated through your ERP system. Great, but the phone call to quote unquote collect, right? And so it's
The
just
dreaded phone
amazing.
call.
It's just amazing where AI is going, these avatars and agents that we'll have available within our financial department.
I mean, you look at, when you study like human behavior and how people respond. So when you take note to that and you look at it and say, okay, who's normally doing our collection calls and what type of voice do they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, 'cause I remember, some of the sales training, just put a smile on your face when you're talking to somebody, and
Smile and dial.
they'll sense it versus whatever anger management issues are coming out, right? You can program it, right? You can program it to be able to say, hey, if it's going to go to this type of personality set, this type of voice is more calming, is more relaxing, and that is kind of like they're just in a circadian rhythm. Like, yeah, I'll pay that right now, and then
Yeah.
it's almost kind of they're in the trance type thing.
Okay,
But
so you just made me think of this. Is so random, but because people I'm sure are out there, I'm like, is that even possible? It totally is. From voice to digital twinning yourself, both as an avatar, even just voice alone. It's all doable today. I a couple of weeks ago, I unfortunately, and I never get sick, but I got sick, and I'm just asking my little bot here on OpenAI ChatGPT, hey, I'm sick. This is what I'm thinking of. What should I do? And it recognized my tone change. Right, I kind of had a raspy kind of. I was all clogged up, and it slowed down because it knew I had a headache. I'm sure I was pounding. It slowed down its tone. It was almost mimicking how I was talking in a sense. And I was like, I didn't realize till after. I'm like, I really appreciated that it didn't just like go at the speed it normally does because I'm
yeah,
just not with it. So to your point, it has vision, it has memory, and now it's actually understanding, or at least picking up on and reasoning with some of the social cues that you're saying. So not just finance and this AR collector, but sales, right? Like think about some of those cues. You just there's the science of sales, but then there's the art, and that's the art is understanding who you're chatting with, who the audience is, slowing things down or pausing or getting real hyped up, right? And it's you're spot on. But I think about just sales, but also what that can do, that AI can do on the finance side too. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think there was an article. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was online yesterday. How it was saying, to get results, get angry at AI. You kind of you're like, what the heck are you doing? This is like the worst thing. So when I was doing my immersion into AI, I found myself doing that because if you don't understand the program engineering part, then all of a sudden you sit there and you find yourself having this conversation like more verbose, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is just insane. I'm getting upset at this. But the way AI would respond, oh, you're exactly right. That is the most correct way to do that. I should have had that insight. That's how it's responding, right? And so
Right.
in a lot of respects, it's very good because, like for you, it's almost like how you were feeling. Most human beings would be like, "Get over it, dude. Drink a bunch of water, or take some Excedrin, or go get an IV
That's
therapy,
what
or
my
do
wife
something."
tells me. That's what she's whipping a
Right?
baby.
And
That's
so
so funny.
then it's almost like you're going to have I don't know, whatever one of those Star Wars bots that's rolling around next to you that's going to be your Val. There's going
Man.
to be so intuitive, like, hey Albert, I think you need to have a matcha tea,
Yeah.
something.
Shoot, I'd kill for an R2D2 and a little bell. That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
Well, hey,
but I
switching
mean,
switching
yeah,
gears, switching gears. You're the expert. I mean, almost 1.2 bill in deals, in M&A deals and investment deals. What have you found, right? And I love that you were talking about the storyboarding and like understanding the business. What do investors want to hear from the CFO or a finance leader nowadays?
the the yeah. So they want to hear really what's really going on in the business.
Hmm.
Not everything is just perfect. Okay, it's like, okay, what are they know what the core items are, but then they're also intrigued to see whether or not are you going to touch upon some of the items that they'll figure out. Okay,
Hmm.
because various inefficiencies when you start looking at the numbers, and they'll start, okay, you got some of this, what's going on there, do you have a rogue sales team, or that's not performing, or something. They'll figure it out. But the storyboarding is just the faster you cut to the chase on what the business is and talking about it and what the very real elements are. That's why I like in a lot of mergers and acquisitions. I've seen tremendous value in having the buyers and the sellers have some sort of relationship. A lot of times, the legal ends were like, no, let's keep them away. Let's keep them away.
Hmm.
Like every single deal I've been a part of, it's almost like there's either a small conversation where deal fatigue happens and frustrations occur, and it's how things are transmitted or translated from person to person, and then when you peel it back and the buyers and the sellers are in the same room and they start talking about it, what it is, there's a whole different level of respect that occurs. And so when you see where deals can potentially fall apart, they start to come back together because then you see the buyers and sellers, and then it's like, oh my gosh, you see a relationship forming here where that buyer will most likely, maybe once a quarter go golfing with the seller, and they'll talk about stuff and get some additional insight.
Right.
I mean, so there's in the world, they'll always boil down and say, okay, we need to look at the financials. And so with AI, we now have ways to be able to show and illustrate financials in a lot of different ways.
Right.
But if you're showing the same figures in the same books, then what I'm seeing is more opportunity as well with the AI. Because, for example, we're working on a deal now that we have a seller that is now starting to take hold of their new strategy, right? And their historical financials aren't showing that, but the last 3 months is starting to take hold. So
Hmm.
how do you really take account for that in a sim or a pitch without it being a storyboard? But a storyboard you can change and say, okay, we're going to change. We're now going to inject this and explain why. And that whole dialogue when you're talking human to human, and they see the nonverbal verbal cues. There's things you can hide and things you can't hide.
Oh, it'll
But
get
people
sniffed
know.
out. They'll get sniffed out, and your, I mean, just with your experience, I can only imagine like what you sniff out when you know I'm like, this is, excuse my language, and I don't know if I'll get off of YouTube or Spotify, but this is bullshit. It's smeared all over. I could smell it. What
Yeah,
are some of those, like, what are some of those red flags? Like, first of all, you don't be too good to be true, because we're gonna find it type of thing. But what are the other red flags that from the deals that you have W's on, or maybe even the L's on? Like, what were some of those red flags that you spot before others do now, where you're like, oh, I'm gonna look there?
yeah. So I mean, one of the first that I don't think a lot of people realize, um, it's more of a, I guess, intuitive thing. But if you've been part of it, if you've got a lot of intercompany stuff going on, okay,
Mm,
and depending on what the companies are and the nature of the movement, right? Um, you just got to pay attention to it. You got to be able, and I think with AI, I mean, I was with a company, landscaping company, and it wasn't anything blatant, but it was. I started looking. I started seeing the owner's equity portion on the balance sheet like increasing. It was like, why is this? Why is this at $1.4 million throughout the year, right? And it was essentially miscategorization of, okay, the owner would submit them, and then the accountant would then input them, and they wouldn't then go through the chart of accounts and say, okay, this is for marketing. Oh, this is for this client. It
right.
went all to the owners. And so then I'm like, oh no, we're not going to have that amount be passed through and be taxed at the owner's level. Right. And so there's, that's for me, that's where it's exciting with AI to be able, I think AI will have the capabilities to be able to see that, bring it up and say, hey, just as a note, have you noticed this? Have you looked at this in more detail? And then, I mean, trying to uncover true vendors, all that type of stuff. That, I mean, if people are intentionally trying to fraud the system, they'll find ways to do it. But that's where I think AI can help sniff that type of stuff out.
Yeah, you're spot on, man. You'll love this. We have a client, they have multiple brands within their portfolio, and there's a lot of intercompany cash flowing, right? So they're moving and transferring, something's paying for this and that. And when you look at the books, we use Comply IQ from Valisites, and it flagged it immediately. Like, we are not invoicing correctly, using the right bank accounts for this, and their tax liability was just like, oh my, oh no. But I was so glad though, because
Yeah.
first of all, how long would it have taken us to find that? Right. So you think of all the hours that it takes to go and scrub through, and I mean, we all have been there, right? From a
Yep.
digital migration, a new ERP, or you're just scrubbing that GL to find like every little bit of information you can. It takes a lot, and then there's human error, right? So you don't get it always right, or something. You miss it, right? I grabbed my glass of wine right when I was about to look at that important thing, and now the AI, I mean, the AI doesn't sleep. It's right there, and it's going to scrub it, and it's going to find it. And so I thought you'd like that. That was a good use case
Oh,
around something that we found recently, and we're
that's
fixing it up.
huge.
We're fixing it up, yeah, because we're trying to, aside from, cash flow valuation, but tax strategy. I mean, that's huge for the organization. So,
Yeah,
um,
and that's not where I see a lot. But then, to go to the comply, um, to me that is a very integral and crucial component within the financial and accounting, right? Because a lot of times I'll see different positions. They'll say, okay, CFO, you need to be a CPA, you need to
right.
be up to and okay, I don't have my CPA. I could sit for it and get it right. But more importantly, what is it that they're wanting with that CPA, right? And it's that valuable credential
It's
that they
compliance.
have,
Yeah.
right? Compliance. And so, and what is compliance? Okay, gap or reference to code. And so, if you have AI that is always
Mm.
always sharp, because you're dealing with human beings. Human beings will either know certain portions of the compliance, but AI, you know that's going to have almost a fully 100% understanding, and then it will apply it. It'll bring it up. So I
Yeah.
look at that and saying, it's not necessarily relying upon the humans to have that, but if you have the systems and the technology that it will immediately bring that up. So many small companies. Oh my goodness, you get in there, it's like, oh, this is a
Yeah.
train wreck. We got to revamp all of this.
That's a good point. I've never thought about it that way. Hey, our Comply IQ is just as good or maybe even better than your CPA cert. Dave didn't say that. I said that. I'm going to get in trouble for that. That's awesome. Um, from a cash flow, going back to cash flow, you have a lot of experience, and I love how bullish you are, passionate you are about cash flow. It's true. I mean, a lot of companies failed because they weren't minding their cash positioning and strength, or not maybe it wasn't a strength, right? What are your ways, like favorite ways to uncover cash flow in companies that feel like, man, I don't know what else to do. We can't cut, we can't add, we can't, our inflow outflow, we're tapped out. What are
Yeah.
ways what are ways that you find that can help them with their cash positioning?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is, I think a lot of it just comes down to a lot of times in the companies, they have a sense of urgency, and the
Mm,
urgency is cash. And so then they're always looking at it and saying, well, they pull up their, a AR aging of who hasn't paid them yet? Why haven't
right.
they paid them yet? And then who's that far out? And so a lot of times, I think it comes down to a lot of communication and reasoning, because there's you got a ton of built-in value if you got some AR and you got some customers. Okay, AR is a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to factor, right? And you don't necessarily need to, but you can go in there and try to be able. I mean, if you reach out to human beings and you find out they've got their own crap show going on and they're
Mhm.
trying to manage that, but they're also trying to maintain a sense of integrity of,
Right.
you know, I'm just trying to prevent this ship from going down, right? So then you figure out what items can be paid, right? So a lot of times it's just, oh, I got this full amount. Well, if you go in and you have a reasonable mind and start talking about things and you figure out, okay, what you owe this much and how can we get this much in there? And sometimes you either map it out on, hey, let's do this much per week, or you say, okay, can you do this much, and then if you do this, we can then give you a discount, right? A lot of times, I mean, people don't raise their prices, so they're built-in cash flow there.
Mm.
um, and I mean, there's a lot of times they have assets. A lot of times they don't think they can tap into the assets. That's one of the things that I'm looking at now. I was having a conversation with a group that they will lend, and their whole focus is on you know unavailable assets, qualified assets, stuff that's wrapped up in trust and so forth. But
Huge.
they know that they eventually be able to tackle that. So if people are willing to, they'll sit back and think, okay, I can do this. A lot of times, I mean, there's not a lot of lenders that will do it, but I mean, there's a lot of people that have digital asset wallets, cryptocurrencies, digital assets, and so forth, where um, you know most people will look at it and think, okay, well, I can just convert that to my dollars and I'll put in my Venmo or my PayPal, or
Mm.
anything like that. It's thinking outside the box of,
Yeah.
okay, what do I have and what can be reasonably lent or used on it or easily converted to cash.
Yeah. It's being creative. I love that. Whether it's digital or physical assets, especially if you're asset intensive, there's creative ways to impact your cash and cash positioning, or even what you were from a traditional basic, right? But I even say use AI to go through all of your vendor terms, right? I'm so
Yep.
surprised how often those just sit filed away, if they're filed away, right? And how often those aren't looked at, right? And you look at the terms, you're like, wait a second here. You look at the fees when people are late, none of them being charged, right? When they should be paid, et cetera. You use AI to scrub through all those agreements again to save time and then come up with a strategy. But I love what you say, human to human. Like, let's work this out. We're all dealing with our own thing at our own organization, but let's talk about the terms. Do the terms need to be renegotiated, right? Because a lot of the times, unless you need to be creative or even factoring or line of credit, what have you, a lot of the times it's living within your AR and AP and it's timing. I'm so surprised how often it's just like, yeah, we should pay whenever, we collect whenever, and well, no shoot, you have a cash flow issue. Like
Yeah, no,
you have to be. It's like running the household, right? You have to know when is it coming in, how much is coming in, what's going out, and like I tell my wife, we're gonna slow that down. I'm gonna have alert for every dollar spent. Like I want to make sure we have that down. So
no, I'm glad you brought that up because that, I mean, that triggers a lot in my mind because it's habitual to say whatever your payables are, you're going to put off as far as possible,
right,
right? Uh, Inherently, and so a lot of times I will get in there and I will try to see. I'll see what is the cash cycles that the company goes through. When are they most heavily burdened with payroll or
right,
other items? But more importantly, first, you get that cash flow model in place. I mean, you get that cash IQ that you see that and you can see what the actuals have been and what you're forecasting, and you can change those and see how it changes your cash, right? So being aware, and then when you're aware, you can go in, and a lot of times when you're playing around in that cash flow model, you can, without getting too creative, just by saying we're going to pay this at this time, we're going to pay this at this time, because then it's like it gets rid of these big EKGs in the cash flow, and so
exactly,
preferably if you just have an even keel going on with what your cash fluctuations are, right? So that right there, if you talk about selling a business, if you show a business that has a pretty even keel of what the cash is, no matter what you're doing behind the scenes, the buyers look at that and think, oh wow, you don't got these huge dips and valleys and
yeah,
things all over the place. But that's part of the CFO, and then getting in with the team, but using AI of saying how best can I streamline which items should I prepay, if I pay early, will they give me a discount? Right,
right,
most of the time they will,
yep. I love
considerable
that.
discount.
Not just even from the valuation or any M&A, but I'm telling you, I always say we're gonna put Valicites in your DNA. We'll show up to a bank with the cash IQ, the forecasting model, trend sites and deep sites, and the bank's like, why can't more people be like you all? And we renegotiate terms because I'm showing
Right
them
there.
every little detail of inflow, outflow, timing, every behavior of our vendor, our AR, and what were the significant improvement by using Cash IQ. Obviously, the books are clean with the comply, but then my executive package with the trend sites and deep sites, always say tied with a bow. Show up to the bank, they're going to do everything that I want. It just like
But
clockwork.
exactly though. But seriously, because I mean, banks, and that's where, like for me, I like to be that. If I understand the bank, if I understand the lender, if I understand whatever I'm going to, I want to be that guy that is like whoever looks at it says, "Oh my gosh, okay, finally a straightforward deal with this."
Exactly.
I'm not getting way too much financial stuff that I have no idea what it is. But to your point, when you show up and you have that your whole val sites comply the cash, the trends, and you're able to show that to them. I mean, most banks just don't have that level of technology.
Right.
They're always reverting back because, like for me, I'm like, okay, so you just sent me this physical page I have to handwrite on that I just gave you the electronic version of, but I have to, correct me if I have to fill it out here, right? Like
I love that.
duplication, replication. No,
Right.
it's just like, so
So good.
sometimes I think that's where the banks, if they then will, and most of the time it's like, okay, if they have it on their radar and they see it and understand it, and then it's almost like if you can kind of nudge them in the direction of knowing what are the key things they're looking at in underwriting, which the CFO should already have that intuitive nature to be able to finesse that relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Get the thing done. Okay, it's done inside of a week or less. Shouldn't take that long. Because if you present in a way for the underwriters to then say, okay, all right, I don't think I need anything else.
Exactly. That's exactly what you want. Well, I did my homework. I mean, you've been in SaaS, you've been in real estate, healthcare, fintech, and I love hearing about just the positive impact you've made on founder-led companies as well as PE backed. And I was curious. to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, what is the difference, like when you're advising founder led versus PE backed, and then also, when you're thinking about capital planning? I mean, what's the difference when you're dealing with some of these different industries, some of these different types of entity structuring, and again, PE backed versus founder led?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's not a lot of differentiation between them, because at the end of the day, I'm able to pull from, okay, I've been there, done it. I owned and operated my own companies with, some fantastic business partners, and we're able to see success. Okay. What does success look like? It looks like it's different for everybody. Did you sell it for zero? No. I mean, you sold it for a profit. But at the end of the day, you look at a lot of what PE is changing. I'm seeing, because a lot of PE is looking at it and saying, we kind of wish we were rolled up into the family office model, mainly because, okay, PE, okay, you got the fund, you got the investment manager, and then the portfolio companies, right? And so for like a fractional CFO, that whole ecosystem just resonates. All the portfolio companies have their VP of finance or even a CFO, and then the fund's relatively straightforward. Money comes in, maybe some syndication fees, but then money goes to investment, and then you got the animal where all the I don't know, private jets or Lamborghinis or he doesn't whatever they want, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, they want to know that how you approach the business is if it's your own business, that you treat the money, you treat it as if it's your own, because when you do that, when you have your own business and you are putting your own money in and you're bootstrapping it, and you're having to have difficult conversations with your entire family, not just your spouse, because the more you include your family that are older, they understand, because there might be some sacrifices, right? But the more people understand that you treat that the same, okay, there's a whole different level of respect and integrity and appreciation, love, care, concern that the owners have for you as an individual that's been there and done it, because you are relatable. Because sometimes it's not talking about the business. It's not talking about the numbers. You just need to be a confidant to that CEO that may be having a difficult time for whatever reason and having a low time, and you can relate and you can help kind of say, hey, we can do this, everything's going to be all right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then if you pull in the Val sites, things get even better. It's like, hey, we got Val here,
Yeah,
da,
I
da, da,
love
da,
it.
like,
That, Val? I love it. Well, what advice would you give to the rising CFO or financial leader that's stepping into the first fractional interim role? And then what's your vision? I mean, what's your opinion on this next evolution of the modern finance leader in our space?
yeah, I mean, there's already been the, okay, how people look at accounting and say, are all the jobs going to be replaced by AI and so forth? And no, not all of them, but a majority of them potentially be just because of what it can do for companies.
Right.
Okay. Because I try to reach out to at least two or three owners of their own, fractional CFO firms to find out, you know, um, what percentage of their business is on accounting versus finance, and what they're pursuing. And still large percent, 85% or more is accounting, bookkeeping, AR, AP. And you've already got systems now that are in play to help enable, Valsites to be able to almost reconcile and have your books closed weekly, if not daily.
It has to be yeah, it has to be daily and weekly for sure. I still see too many accounting firms, and I get it, it's the billable hour, but they're taking way too long. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
and most of the times we're taking over accounting too, because we want
Yeah,
that speed.
yeah. You want the speed, and so then it's accounting, and then for the CFO, right? I think there's going to be even a more kind of shift to fractional, strategic,
Right.
project. CFOs, where you're just not anchored in with one company, because a CEO and a board can look at it and say, okay, Valsites is doing how much of our accounting and finance, stuff together, and what do we need is the human component, right? And so then it's the how well does someone storyboard? How well does someone can quickly
So spot on.
understand and digest a business, and then be able to um, tell it in a very charismatic, very a compelling, genuine, authentic way that it resonates with people, right?
Yeah.
Where people are like, "Oh my gosh, can I invest in that company?" It's almost like Blackstone's lunch. 15 minutes into the lunch, they've raised what $32 billion. So
I mean, you're in, and you're so spot on. I mean, this is where it's going. And I hope people hear us out here and hear you out. I mean, exactly what you're saying. This is where we're going. It's already here, by the way. It's, this is where it's here, and it's where it's going is your communication skills, your charisma, your EQ, right? And, some call it EQ, or your vulnerability, your emotional availability, your salesmanship. I mean, that's part of it, right? Just understanding. And what I mean by that is understanding social cues and knowing how to have a conversation. Everything else is getting taken care of. The intelligence is there and it's getting better. This is where I'm trying to challenge people. You're mentioning mentoring. Challenge people to, like, you need to start watching videos. You need to get on stage. You need to start practicing more, get on calls, because it's no longer you are back behind the scenes. That's not going to exist anymore. That will be a digital species, right?
correct.
You need
Yep.
to get out in front. And if, and it's okay if you're nervous about that now, just keep repping and getting that in. And so it's such great
Yeah.
advice. I love that. And, it's funny. Even this week, I was on multiple conversations, some calls where private equity is now swooping up on fractional CFO firms. Right now, there is this challenge, and I keep hearing it, this 30% plus mark on the margin. You got to think, well, the fractional CFO needs to be paid a certain amount to feel real happy and incentivized, et cetera, right? But how do you get the other squeeze out of the margin? Well, you have to have this digital species, this intelligence like Valisight, to be able to go acquire more clients, right?
Yep.
Maybe take a look at the pricing strategy, but do it faster with precision that offers value. If you're doing it old school way and you're doing the billable hour with manual work, trust me, you will not get that 30% plus margin. So for all the private
No.
equity guys out there, you got to figure out, if it's not Valisight's great. I mean, if it is Valisight's, it's awesome. But if it's something else, like, start looking into this AI stuff if you truly want that return.
Yeah. No, I mean, exactly, because it's where private equity is. There's a large percentage of them doing managed services, right?
Yep.
And so managed services can be a component of, okay, AI is then saying, this is what percentage you should have for your sales, marketing, accounting, right? And so private equity is capturing that versus paying an outside firm because they got the resources,
Right.
right? So that they're looking at what is the ecosystem that we need to dial into to
Exactly.
keep it there. I go back to like the family office. You got the private equity funds. If they're in a family office type structure, okay, where they've got the wealth management component, and that wealth management component is communicating with the fund structures, you essentially will not have to go and raise outside capital ever again, because you are paying attention to what your investors want and what
Mhm.
they like, and they'll invest into their own funds, if you will, if there's like, oh my gosh, family office, and they're paying attention to what the investors want. I mean, new family office type structure,
Right. The
the
modern family office structure. Yeah, I love that. Well,
yeah.
this was
So
so
I
good.
mean,
I
but I
appreciate.
think, going back to what you asked, one of the other things I would tell people to do is, find someone who has that more experience than you, whether it's private equity and exposure to tax planning,
Mm,
and go and see whether or not you can shadow them or if they will mentor you. And
so
and it's not a matter of having you pay them, because a lot of times if you approach it that way, they'll look at it as a way of, they may want to bring you underneath, within their realm, and have you be part of their structure.
yeah.
Um, but that's one of the, because that's what one of these CEOs did. He said, you can do a lot of stuff, but one of the, I think, the most impactful things you could do, because you have all this experience, private equity, raising capital, tax, equipment financing, those types of things, is, taking my controller, and I want to keep that person here. I don't want them to have to feel like they got to go and get experience in private equity or investment banking or venture capital and then come back, because they won't come back. companies are paying attention to the talent that they like and have, and they want to retain it. So
It's
the
such
more
a
you're
good
able to get.
It's a good point, right? What is your career pathing and mentorship opportunities, especially for those? I'm sure there's controllers right now. It's controllers and those in accounting and maybe in FP&A too that are feeling a little uneasy as we have these conversations about many of the tasks that they do that will no longer exist. It will no longer require a human to do it. So you can only think about the anxiety that's there. Like, oh, do I need to look for something else, right? And so get out ahead of it early, be proactive, mentor these men and women to do some other things and learn some other parts of the business within the financial realm, or as you've done, get in the trenches and learn ops, learn legal, learn some other things. So I love that you say that, and it's good advice. Well, I appreciate how action driven you are, performance driven. I mean, this is a great conversation. You're so grounded and humble, sir. I appreciate it, and I love that you're just in it. You're in it. You're plugged in, as you would say, and you remind us, those that are listening here, that we're in the finance side. We're not just bean counters. That's so old school, right? We're leaders. We're storytellers, as you mentioned, and what I'd like to say, you're a force multiplier that's connected to strategy and execution with precision, now speed and insight, right? That's our job, is to go and make sure that the decision makers or the organizations making the right decisions to grow the business. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
For those that want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
Hey, I can be found anywhere. I mean, most predominantly, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's really the only social profile I have. I would relay my website, but I'm just in the process of ramping that up. But that's strongcapitalpartners.com. You can go to that. No, I appreciate this entire opportunity. It's been educational. It's been fun. I mean, it's been transformative.
Well, I know you're
I
helping a
think
lot of
I
people.
think what the new title for a chief financial officer are going to be is actually almost kind of be chief stakeholder officer.
I like that.
That person that knows and can interact with all sorts of different people within the business and be able to explain the business, because they know the numbers, but they know how they play into how it drives sales, or how it, operations gets more benefit, and then with mergers and acquisitions, there's always the operational integration. The more you understand that, the more you're going to retain so much more of that value than what you are estimating you're going to lose. But
Yeah, so
anyway,
good. Well, make sure
thank
to
you.
connect with, my pleasure. Thank you. Make sure to connect with Dave on LinkedIn or at his website. And like Dave, if you want to explore how AI can support your FP&A workflows, cash flow modeling, or forecasting, and any type of finance transformation, book a demo with us at valsites.com, or just DM me at LinkedIn. You could find me there as well, right? As I mentioned, we build intelligence financial systems that help you forecast better. If you're looking to scale smarter or even operate leaner, we're there for you. But Dave, I appreciate this. This has been awesome, and everybody, thanks for jumping on the Valsites podcast. As always, I'm Albert Ramos, and we'll see you next time. Dave, thank you.
Yeah, book the demo with them. It is top
Good.
notch software. I'm not just saying that. It's it. I've looked at a lot of software, and you guys got a lot, just a great ecosystem that benefits a lot of companies. So
Well, we're lucky to know you, and it's been a pleasure, sir. And keep up the great work. And thanks for continuing to mentor us as future modern finance leaders. We love it.
no, thank you. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, sir. All right. Thanks, everybody.